Hi there Mohamed, and welcome to your coaching video. I've had a look at your tactics, your player instructions, and to be honest I think you're in a bit of a mess with them. So we'll have a look at your game, and then at the end, possibly in an email that I send the game link with, I'll suggest something a bit more suitable. The tactics themselves are okay, it's the player instructions that look to be a problem, especially well in the 4-3-2-1. Obviously I don't have time to analyse each individual game plan in great detail, but looking at the 4-3-2-1, it seems to be a problem. You certainly don't want all three strikers drifting wide. You need to have some sort of presence on the centre, and I think with the cover wing you're also in a bit of a mess. Right, so it looks like this guy is actually playing high pressure against you. It looks like he's actually just quite a decent defender. But yep, that's okay. You're doing, was that time finishing? Yeah, you're doing okay so far, so good. But yeah, I'd say this guy is a decent defender. He certainly knows what he's doing. Okay, time finishing, not great there. I think one thing you can look at when you're playing against players who are quite good at the pressure like this, something to bear in mind is that when they're sprinting around, as he is with Lucas here, when you get the ball with Kante, you always have the option of taking advantage of his momentum. It's a bit like in martial arts, I guess, where you take advantage of your opponent's momentum. He's sprinting full speed down here, and Kante is obviously facing in this direction, so he's trying to get here to take the ball off Kante. I guess he's probably anticipating that you're going to run this way, so he's aiming his run about here, I would guess. So in this kind of situation, what you can always do is just fake that you're going to run in that direction, and then just come back and run in the opposite direction to where he's sprinting, if you see what I mean. So look, yeah, he's kind of anticipated that you're going to continue that run with Kante. And what would really cause him problems now is if you just took a step backwards this way and then dribbled up there, and then you'd have an easy pass to this player. So be aware of the kind of momentum of your opponent's runs, because it would take him a long time to stop and turn around and follow you up there. Okay. Right, I'm just going to pause this and turn off Twitter for a second because I'm getting a million notifications. Okay. Right. What he's doing, what your opponent is doing, and what you've got to be aware of is that he's not always pressuring you. Okay, this is very good defending. This actually says more about your opponent's play than it does yours in a lot of ways, Mohamed. He's not coming to apply direct pressure on you. What he's doing is just taking a position close to you. Okay, if you watch, look there, he's jockeying. When you see the jockey animation, you can be pretty sure that he's not going to apply direct pressure. Okay, so can't quite catch it. Okay, So there, when the player sort of starts to squat, and what he's doing is he's trying to make sure that he's in a position to cover you if you do start a run to the outside. But he's also aware that the obvious pass for you now is to this player. Okay, so he's taken a position where he can easily intercept it. So if you want to know how to position your fullback in this position, this is the perfect illustration of it, because this is absolutely excellent defending. Now, there is something that you can do about this, and a little bit later in the game I'm sure there'll be an opportunity to explain that. Right, the problem that you've got there is that you haven't been in a great position with your fullback. When you see this player making the run, that's when you need to use the right stick to switch to cover you, to take control of your fullback, because you don't need to worry about this guy anymore. Okay, he's closely marked. The AI will take care of the player on the ball if your opponent decides to keep the ball, which is unlikely. This attacker is marked by the centre back, so he's not a problem. You need to be taking control of this player, because that is always where the ball is most likely to go. Passes generally will tend to be passed in the direction that the player's shoulders are facing. Okay, so if his shoulders are square down there, you can bet your bottom dollar pretty much that the pass is going to go in that direction. He's obviously not going to pass to this player, is he? Let's say that. Okay, he could maybe pass to that player, but he's covered by this centre back. This is where you need to be concerned. So there, you need to be switched to this player. You certainly don't need that little misstep where you're drawn towards the ball. That really is the biggest mistake that you made there, Mohamed. This player, Mendy, does not need to be facing this direction. He does not need to be watching the ball. He needs to be sprinting back to cover this run. And that little misstep there, where you get drawn to the ball, that's all you need in order for this player to get right behind you. And if your opponent was as good an attacker as he is a defender, you'd probably be losing 1-0 there. Was that a penalty? Let me have a look at that. That was a penalty? All four. The tackle was made after he'd taken the shot, surely. Yep, there's the shot. And there's contact. That is disgraceful. That should never have been a penalty. So it goes. Justice. Alright, I think I just need to double check. What your opponent's doing here is using teammate contain to trap you on the wing. Okay, so he's closing you down with the player that he's controlling, and he's also holding teammate contain to get this player to close you in as well. Once you get into that position, you're not going to get out of it. What I wanted to mention earlier, but I couldn't really, because you need to sort of see the position on the pitch in the game. The problem that you've got here, Mohamed, is that although your attacking play is okay, there's nothing particularly bad about it. The problem is that it's quite predictable. I want you to remember what I said earlier about the direction that the player's shoulders are facing in. There's a 95% chance that we know where this pass is going, unless you're going to play it back to your fullback. It's going up here. And your opponent is probably, because he's a good reader of this game, this guy's been playing FIFA for a long time, I'll tell you that for a fact. he'll know already at this point that that's where the ball's going. Okay, so he's immediately there closing you down, and you lose possession. Right, so the way to avoid this is, surprise surprise, just be a bit less predictable. Okay, so when the ball comes out to Mendy here, that's good. The drag back is good because it's a nice change of direction. When the ball comes to Oxlade-Chamberlain here, you've got a few options. Okay, you can either do a ball roll away from the player that your opponent's controlling, or you can do what he's not expecting. Okay, he's expecting the pass to come up here. He's not expecting you to go back to the fullback. There's absolutely nothing wrong when you're playing somebody who's playing high pressure like this, going back to the fullback, maybe across to the centre back. And then if you look on your mini map, normally you'll find that the opposite fullback is wide open. So what you really want to be looking to do here, because he's got this side of the pitch closed off, if you look at the map, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's kind of an even balance, but he's in a much better and more aggressive position on this side of the pitch. Okay, he's got you closed in on this side of the pitch. So the thing that you need to be doing here is getting the play to one of these players and switching it out wide to the other fullback, because he's in loads of space. Okay, the main thing though is to not be predictable, and that is predictable when you're in that position. I mean, obviously the best thing is not to get into that position, but if you do get into it, react quickly and play a chipped pass back to your defender, and then look to switch it again down to the right fullback. Okay, that's how we deal with that kind of thing. Right, again, look, that is the pass to make right here. Wide open space, and that's what you need to be looking for against high pressure. The reason why he's so effective at what he's doing, this is actually this is almost a masterclass in how to play pressure. He's not coming to win the ball off you directly, okay? He's curving his runs so that he's making you think that he's applying pressure when he's actually not, okay? He's not even trying to tackle you here. You see, you've actually got more time on the ball there than you realise. So the thing that you want to be doing, and the habit to get into against good pressure players like this, because it is pressure and it isn't. It's pressure in the sense that he's trying to force you to do things that you don't want to. It's not pressure in the sense that he's trying to tackle the ball from you. Just move away from him, okay? Just, if he's coming at you from this direction, dribble in this direction. Just move away from him. You can sprint maybe 1, 2 touches, well, 1 certainly, to get away from him. And again, you know, look at the players that are in space. When somebody's playing high pressure like this, they will always leave a player in space, and normally it's one of the fullbacks. So always keep one eye on the mini-map and always look at your fullbacks. Now, the other thing, let's just have another look at this phase of play. The other thing that's really effective against these kinds of players, when you move the ball from your centre back to your midfielders, okay, 1-2s are incredibly effective. So if when you receive the ball with Firmino here, if you play a 1-2 with, I don't know who that is, but if you play a 1-2, Firmino will obviously lay the ball off and then go sprinting up here. What your opponent is going to do is just follow the ball. He'll get attracted to the ball, come back up to this player, and Firmino will just have space to sprint into just here. So 1-2s are also another very good idea when it comes to playing against aggressive players like this. It does tend to catch them out quite a lot, but you need to play that pass much earlier. And again, their 1-2s, they will really cut him apart. He's a step ahead of you, Mohamed. He's reading you like a book, because it's just kind of predictable. As the game goes on, I'll show you the kind of predictability and how he's reading you. When you get the ball here, I'm pretty certain that you're going to look to pass it centrally to this guy, okay? So if I'm playing pressure against you, I'm either going to try and cut off this angle down here, okay? Or I'm going to switch to this player and cut off the angle up here. Or I'll switch to this player and try and get straight in front of you. I'm not worried about you passing back to this player, because it doesn't pose any kind of threat, okay? If it comes back here, I'll just look to reposition my players, probably come past Kante and cut off the passing lane and try and apply pressure down there. But at the moment, what your opponent will be thinking is, right, that's where the ball's going next. I've not seen this game, I've no idea. You may pass it back to the fullback. It would be the right move to make in this position when you're under pressure. But my guess, and I would think your opponent's guess, is that it's going to come up here. So, okay, that's good. That is exactly what you need to be doing. Let's just come back and catch it again. So he's already in a position here. He's made a mistake there. You should have played the pass into the middle. That surprises me. Perhaps he's not as good as I was thinking. I don't know if you're using L2, Mohamed, to protect the ball. In that sort of position, you definitely need to. You probably are. When you're in tight spots like this, you've got to remember the chipped pass, okay? You've got to remember that you've always got the option to turn around and chip it over this defender and back to your midfielder here. There are usually options with the chip pass when you're under pressure like that. But yeah, you're handling this pretty well. Good, unlucky. That's good. Good. Brilliant. And that's the danger of playing high pressure, okay? This is why in the higher divisions you don't see it, okay? When you get to the elite levels of the game, people don't play high pressure, and this is exactly why. Is he already out of position there? Yeah, he is. He's lost his fullback. All right. Because he's trying to win the ball so high, because we probably need to go back further than this actually to explain it. Because he's been so aggressive, look, he switched to his left back here and tried to apply pressure and to win the ball on the header, when really his fullback should be taking a much more defensive stance and dropping back into here. So what happens, and let this be a warning to you on defence in terms of getting your fullbacks out of position, what happens is that now Benashir, well, effectively his back four has become a back three, okay? Everybody's tucked in. The right back has tucked in to become a centre back, basically. He's become the right centre back in three centre backs, and Benashir is now playing the left centre back. So now Benashir is responsible for this whole area, okay? So if he gets dragged down here, there's obviously going to be trouble in the centre. And that is what Firmino is smart enough to do. It's good AI from the game there. So now when Benashir gets dragged down here, there's obviously a massive gap between the two centre backs here, because effectively Benashir should be positioned around here, that defender should be here, and they should all be further up, because Dalba should be dealing with this, okay? So now Dalbert is going back in to play the centre back, and again, because he's being so aggressive with Benashir, he's basically turned Benashir into a midfielder, and he shouldn't be. So now you've still got the back three that you're attacking here, and they end up in all kinds of confusion. And look at this big massive hole down the middle for you to attack through. And you can see how it just results in everything getting pulled out of position. So it's an important thing to remember, Mohamed, that although it can be difficult to play against high pressure, when you get it right, when you understand the principles of how to defeat it. I want to play this back actually, because this is a great example of what you do to successfully circumvent it. When you do understand the principles of it, it's so easy to score goals against it. And you've got to watch when you get time. I appreciate that when you're under direct pressure you don't always have time, but one of the best things that you can do in FIFA, especially in this year's FIFA, is take your eye off the ball when you can. Okay, so look, try and take a glance at what's happening with his defence, and you'll come to spot these situations. Whenever he's got a back three, if you can draw one of his players out wide and then move the attack back into the centre, you're always going to have gaps to get runners through. It's something very much to look for. Okay, as soon as you spot this gap here, you have to be thinking, right, how do I exploit it? And he's just, his defence is wide open. Brilliant, really good goal. Really pleased with that, Mohamed. So it's not a case, I don't think, that you struggle against pressure. I think it's more a case that you don't know how to play against pressure. Or perhaps that you do know how, you just don't understand why you get it right sometimes and wrong others. Just something to pay attention to here in this quick phase. Watch your opponent, watch his players. He's just spamming tackles. That's a charged up standing tackle. And here again. And all you do, this is the right, you're doing exactly the right thing. You're kind of luring him towards you and then just moving the ball away. And playing it around like this. Exactly the right way to play against pressure players. And come back. Good. Come back again. Good. Go forward. Good. Forward. Now, this is all good and well, isn't it? But in that entire phase, it's predictable. That's the problem with it. Let's just come back a bit further and speed it up. So to an extent, what you're doing here, Mohamed, is fine. But what I'd like to see you do is just add a few extra wrinkles to really, basically just to wind your opponent up. Instead of making the obvious pass forward here, come back to your centre back, move it out wide to your right back, who's just down here out of camera or something, or something. Come back to your centre back and move it to your right back, who's out of shot down here somewhere. Okay, bit less predictable. Instead of making the pass up there, go back to your centre back and move it out wide. Try and get a bit more width into your attack against pressure opponents, and try and dummy them, because when you're passing around like this, it's fine, but you're not creating any great problems for your opponent. He pretty much knows where you're going to go next. Unlucky. I think one of the problems that you've got with your lineup, Mohamed, is your midfielders are all very defensively minded. So when you get into positions like that, you're a bit reluctant to shoot. Whoa, bit of speed up leg there. Maybe change one so that he's a bit more better rounded, so that he's not entirely defensive. And then it gives you the option of getting the shot off on the edge of the box. Very risky. It's good defending. Don't see any problems with your defending actually at this point. And to be honest, it's difficult to say that I see any problems with your attacking, because we're looking specifically at a game here, which is that's the ball that you need to be playing more often. More than that, when you play it, the most effective pass here is the driven lobbed pass. So you want to be holding, let me get this right, it's on, I can never think of the controls unless I'm actually holding a controller and playing the game. The driven pass is R1, isn't it? Of course it is. You want to be holding R1 plus square. So instead of the normal square pass, hold down R1, and what the player will do is basically he'll pass it out here in the air, but it'll be at a lower trajectory, so it'll get out there much quicker, and it catches your opponent out much more. If you look at the trajectory of this ball, when you play it, it's kind of quite lobbed, loops. In a way it catches your opponent out, so it's not that bad, but the driven lobbed pass is really effective at switching wings. The drag backs are good, okay? It's what you do after the drag backs that's the problem. You've got to be more comfortable with passing backwards against high pressure opponents, because another thing that you need to remember, one of the things that will always give you an advantage, let's say that every single player on the pitch apart from the goalkeepers, alright, the goalkeepers maintain their normal positions, shall we say, but every other player is squeezed into this half of the pitch, okay? So you've got 21 players in this pitch. The numbers are in your favour, okay? And the reason that they're in your favour is because you have a goalkeeper. So at worst, you can always gain numerical advantage. You should always have a spare player, basically, whenever you're under pressure like this, and quite often that spare player is your goalkeeper. So don't be afraid of passing backwards, and don't be afraid of using your goalkeeper. In the past, the kicking stat has been absolutely useless on a goalkeeper. You need to play the pass back to your defender there, Mohamed. But yeah, the kicking stat has been useless on a goalkeeper, but this year it's actually quite important. You need a goalkeeper with decent distribution, because when you're up against high pressure players like this, you really need to be involving your keeper. Right, here again, look, you need to use the width. I would actually say that you need to use it there. Look at all the space that your fullback's got down here. Again here, there's pressure in all of this area, okay? The whole centre is congested. All the space is out on the wings. Same on the top, really. But obviously with the ball being down here, use the width. And it's a good way to just relieve the pressure. Again, look, it's like you have it's like you've sworn that you're never going to pass back. With Mahrez here, no brainer. You've got to make the pass back to your centre back, even to one of these players. But personally, you need to be powering up the pass and making sure that it gets back to the centre back. And that's how you deal with the high pressure. Okay. So I think we actually managed to pack quite a lot into that first half, Mohamed. Hopefully you'll see from the goal you scored that that was actually you coping really well with high pressure. But in a way that's more down to the fact that high pressure naturally tends to lead to defences being broken open wide. It's just a case of getting the ball forward to take advantage of that, and you've got to do it fairly quickly. That was a bit sweaty. Yeah, you've got to do it fairly quickly, but it's not always possible. So when it's not possible to move the ball forward quickly like this, look, all right, here, you've got to play a 1-2 here. When Benashia gets dragged out of defence like this, okay, if you play a 1-2 between Firmino and Matuidi, Firmino lays the ball off to Matuidi here, all right, so the ball's with Matuidi now. Benashia is facing this way. I've just paused it a little bit too late there. Right, it's about momentum again. If Firmino plays the pass down here to Matuidi, he lays the ball off, and suddenly your opponent, who's super focused on high pressure, the chances are is that he's going to drag Benashia towards the ball. Okay, if he does that, then obviously Firmino, when you've played the 1-2, Firmino's going to bomb forward, so he'll bomb forward into this open space where Benashia should be. Okay, but even if he doesn't, okay, even if he takes control of this player and charges you with this player, the space behind Benashia will be enough for Firmino to run into, because Firmino is already facing in this direction, whereas Benashia is facing and moving in this direction. So it'll take a lot longer for Benashia to stop, turn and chase backwards than it will do for Firmino just to start sprinting down here. So these are the positions where you've got to play the 1-2 when you're up against aggressive opponents. That is a massive mistake that is made there. Pulling your centre back out of position like that is always a mistake, and the way you punish it is with 1-2s. Very risky pass. Good. That is the way to do it. That's much better. Right. No, come back, come back, come back, come back. You don't need to be doing fancy tricks back here, okay? You don't need to be taking any other risk from there other than playing it back to your centre back, okay? And then from your centre back, as you did earlier, playing it wide to your full back. Trying to force the ball forward is going to lead to you getting into trouble. Again, why aren't you passing the ball backwards there? This is just craziness, Mohamed. You've got to play the ball back to your fullback here, and once it's back with your fullback, again, look, you've got the switch on to the other side. But I don't know what you were thinking there, mate. That's a good attempt, but again, Kante, very defensively minded. He's not going to score many of them, no matter how well you time the finish. It's just not in his game. Good defensive positioning. Just a bit too slow with Fabinho. You've got to realise when you're heading into a 50-50, okay? You're heading straight into a 50-50 battle there. You need to have already, I can see that you haven't, the command needs to be input by now. You need to have already powered up the pass to this player, or even to this player. But you're delaying. You're not thinking ahead there. And you very much need to think ahead against the pressure players. As I was saying earlier, it's difficult to assess your general style of play really, because it is very specifically a case of how you play against pressure players. But one of the, I want to find a good example. We've got another 30 minutes left of the game, so hopefully there will be. One of the things that you've got to realise about when you're playing pressure players is that they pay no attention whatsoever to the shape or structure of their team. They don't pay any attention to the shape of their defence. All they're interested in doing is taking the player nearest to the ball and applying pressure with him. And that's why it's important to move the ball around like this. But you can't do this kind of thing. You've got to see much earlier. What makes your opponent good at this is that he's very good at anticipating what you're going to do next. And this is another of those situations where it's far too easy to read what you're doing, because you constantly go forward, okay? You need to turn and get this ball backwards. That is a good high pressure position. There's a player in front of you. There's a player to the side of you there, one to the side of you there, and one to the side of you here. Every angle is covered. You need to turn around and come back. Maybe go back to the goalkeeper, and at the risk of repeating myself again, get it out to the player in space, your fullback. It's kind of the way that you play sometimes, Mohamed, is the dream for a high pressure player. I'm going to give you a bit of a break and say that you were a bit unlucky there, but the point is you're still not looking to play the ball into space, okay? And you're trying to force it forward. Look at all the space that Kante has ahead of him here, okay? But again, your focus is always on what's in front of you, never on what's behind you. And you need to get better at that. I want to see you develop better awareness of what's behind you and taking advantage of it. You've got to get into the habit of taking your eye off the ball more often. Right. Back to taking your eye off the ball. As soon as you see Benashir charging like this, and you know the type of player you're up against, you know he's going to come straight out and try and win the ball. As soon as you see that, you've got to be thinking, right, 1-2. You've got to be thinking, how do I play a pass here with, is it Matuidi? It is Matuidi. How do I play a 1-2 pass and get the ball back to him? What you need to be doing is playing the 1-2 back to this player. Matuidi runs straight into the gap behind, and you've got an easy goal. When you know the tricks and you've practiced them and you've got used to it, trust me, you'll enjoy coming up against high pressure players, and you'll get tons of rage quits, because one of the great things about them is that they know when they're beaten. They know when they're playing somebody who knows how to cut them apart. And after you've scored a couple of goals by slicing them open like that, they often tend to quit, because this is the only way they know how to play. You've kind of got undone there by being too aggressive yourself. Let's just have a look at this again. You remember the position earlier where your fullback was caught out of position, where your opponent's fullback was caught out of position? That's what you've done with Walker here. You've been drawn far too high up the pitch. Walker should be back here. And it's just left all this space. So now it's you defending with a back three. You've got two here and the third down here. So your left back is now a centre back, more or less. Where I give you credit is that you've sensed that, you've kept control of Walker, and you've run him back into a good position. So well done for that. Take your time. When you're up against a high pressure player, take your time when you've got the ball with your goalkeeper, alright? Because when his custom tactics are set to constant pressure, as they most likely are, anytime the ball is with one of your players and there's a defender anywhere near him, that defender is going to be super aggressive and rushing to close him down. So you need to be absolutely certain that you're not throwing the ball anywhere near one of his players. Okay. Recipe for disaster. The attack's going to come back at you so quickly. Yeah, you're lucky not to concede. Normally at the end of a game, Mohamed, I do a quick summary, which I will do. But I think really your best option with this is to maybe try and find the time to watch this video a couple of times and just have a notepad and just kind of make notes on what you need to do against this kind of player, and then hope that you match up against high pressure players a few times so that you can put it all into practice. Because you won't find it particularly difficult, I don't think. You're playing 4-2-3-1 here. I didn't look at your 4-2-3-1 tactics. Right, okay, let's just talk about player instructions briefly. Right, let's try and squeeze this in quickly. You need one striker centrally, okay? So don't have everybody drifting wide. Try and keep your central striker central. Teams line up in formations for a good reason, okay? There's a reason why this player's lined up here and not over here. He needs to occupy the centre backs, okay? So don't have everybody drifting wide. Your CDMs, fine, keep them on stay back while attacking. Just going to mention briefly, I don't like Matuidi as basically a cam. He's far too defensive minded. If you want somebody who's a bit of a physical presence there, look at somebody like Kevin De Bruyne, who has still got the physical presence, but he can still take a shot as well. Right, okay, back to the CDMs. One of the things that was a problem in the player instructions that I looked at earlier was the cover wing. What you basically want is you want them to be covering the centre unless you have one of your fullbacks getting forward. Okay, if either of your fullbacks, say Mendy, right, if he's unbalanced or join the attack, sorry, I've got that wrong, if he's unbalanced or stay back while attacking, then you don't need to worry about Kante covering the wing, because he's normally going to be in this position anyway, so he won't need help. The only time that you'll need to have Kante covering the wing is if Mendy is set to join the attack, because that means that he'll often vacate the left back position, which means that Kante will need to drop in. So unless you've got one of your fullbacks attacking, always have your central midfielders covering the centre. That should really be the default setting in the game, and I'm not quite sure why EA have done it that way. It's things like that do sometimes make you wonder just how well they understand the tactical aspect of football. Which is a bit of a worry. Right. Now, this is a bit of an odd move that you've made here, Mohamed, really. I appreciate that Matuidi was pretty knackered, he was running out of stamina, but you're winning 1-0 and you've taken off a defensive player and replaced him with an attacking player. You should really be doing the opposite. Yeah, just a thought. I mean, on the whole, you've handled this fairly well, you know. I think the problem with it is you're still at that stage where playing a high pressure player is a really stressful thing, and you feel like you're constantly up against it. When you get used to working the ball around and passing backwards and playing it into space, the stress turns around and it becomes a stress for your opponent, and that's the sort of position that we need to get you into, really. That's good, that's better. When you get used to sort of seeing the space and abusing the space that's left by the press, it just becomes so much easier. And that's good, that's excellent. Oh, and we'll never know what happened. Oh, wow, how could the video end there? I want to go back actually and just look at that move because it was a good example. The goal that you scored earlier and this phase of play here is the best that I've seen you play against pressure in the whole game, and it's because of the way that you move the ball around. Okay, so when you've got the ball with Walker here, you're not forcing it forward. Again, not forcing it forward, and that's when you're better. That's when you're better, when you're playing the ball backwards and you're just using the space. Kante, tons of space there, you've seen it and you've used it. Tons of space, seen it and used it. The 1-2 didn't quite come off that time, but at least you're trying it. 1-2 again. You kind of instinctively know how to do this, I think, Mohamed. But this is the kind of, this is why, again, at the highest level, you'll never see top pro players use constant pressure and what have you. Look at the defensive position that he's in here. He's got 4 players marking 2 of yours, and it just gives you such an advantage. I'd love to think you scored there. Right, okay. As I say, I'll do a quick summary, I always do, but I think you're better off just going through this video again. I appreciate it's probably quite a long one, but I think it'll reward you to do that. It looks like you're a decent player. It's difficult for me to say because, as I say, it's a really specific scenario that you're in here. I want you to try and develop the habit of just taking your eye off the ball a bit more, looking at space and trying to exploit that space a bit more often. Pass the ball backwards more often. If a player's in space behind you, use that space behind you, and if that means going all the way back to your goalkeeper, go all the way back to the goalkeeper. Go wherever there is space. That is the most important thing against a pressure player. Okay. One of the most effective ways out of the trap, because what they'll often try and do is trap you on the wings, is the chipped ball. And what's particularly effective is the method that you actually used a couple of times there, where you switch the play from one wing to the other. And, you know, be aware that 9 times out of 10, if you're out on one wing and you're playing against a high pressure player, the other wing will be wide open. So if one fullback is covered, you can bet your bottom dollar the other fullback won't be covered. I don't think I've ever used the phrase bet your bottom dollar once in the past 5 years, and I've just used it twice in 10 minutes. It's a bit odd, but yeah, I digress. When the ball's out wide on one wing, the other wing will normally be open, so get used to the idea of switching play, and remember that the quickest and often most effective way of switching play is to hold down R1 and then hit the driven lobbed pass. Okay, so R1 and square on the PlayStation. That really is about as much as I can give you on this video, because to be quite honest with you, you haven't been tested defensively. The only problem that you've had really is how you cope with the high pressure. So in order to sort of assess your defence, I'd really need to see you play somebody who's a bit better at attacking. Because I gave this guy too much credit at the beginning, saying that he was a good player. He's not. He's somebody who's basically good at reading the game, I think. He just has a sort of sixth sense for what you're going to do next. That's the other thing I should mention, I guess, try and be a bit more unpredictable. But the unpredictability is going to come from you moving backwards every now and then. And there's nothing he can do about that, because when you move backwards, his players have got to cover a greater distance to close you down, and that actually will also tire them out much more quickly. But yeah, based on what I've seen there, Mohamed, I would say that you're a decent to good player. But I need really to see just a normal game rather than against somebody who's running around like a headless chicken, just trying to close you down all the time. But yeah, this will definitely help you to deal with players like this. They're nothing to be afraid of. It's just a case of seeing the space and moving the ball into that space, whether it's passing into the space, dribbling into the space. Against pressure players, it's all about space. And the final and perhaps most important point that I'll make about pressure players is that often you can't decide where you're going to attack, okay? And this is a mistake that a lot of players make. They decide beforehand, right, I'm going to attack centrally in this game, or I'm going to attack the wings. it's a mistake to do that against high pressure players, because they will leave gaps depending on where the ball is. Their defenders will get pulled out of position, and that's what you've got to be looking for. So you've got to be flexible. You've got to clear your mind of any kind of intention to attack in any specific way. You've just got to say, right, I'm going to be flexible and I'm going to adapt to whatever I'm given. So what you're going to be doing is constantly just moving the ball into the space. Okay, wherever the space, that's where you're going. And eventually you'll find space in the middle, you'll find space in a shooting position, and that's when you take your shots. Okay, so you forget any preconceived ideas you've got about how you're going to attack. You just take advantage of the space. And that, my friend, is pretty much it. It's been a good game to analyse. I always like doing the high pressure ones, because it is one of the most stressful and frustrating things to encounter until you know how to play against it. There, look, space, move the ball backwards. I can't resist it when I see it. It's just, it's there in front of me. I want to help people. Yeah, move the ball into space. Don't stress out, and just wait until you get that opportunity. Because if you keep moving the ball into space, move forwards when you can, the opportunities will come, as they did in this game with your goal. So there we are. I'm going to shut up now. Recommend watching it back again. Thanks for booking the session, mate. I feel like it's been a really good one. If you've got any questions, hit me up either through email or on Twitter. You can get me on Twitter at @thefootcoach. My DMs are open, so if you want to get hold of me through a direct message, that's no problem. And I'll always try and get back to you as quickly as I possibly can. But yeah, good luck and have fun. The high pressure players, they're nothing to be afraid of, nothing at all. They're like the spooks that live under your bed. You know what I mean? It's the Phantom Menace, to use a Star Wars phrase. That they're not really as scary as they seem to be. So yeah, good luck with it, Mohamed. Have fun with them, smash a few of them, and enjoy your rage quits. Okay, mate. Cheers for now. Bye bye.